our final episode of Kickback with Kelly and Barbara, and it appears that we have saved the best for last. Hey, Barbara?
That's right. We've got sports presenter Duncan Elias as well as Pundit Patrick Kinghorn.
Be honest, how many people turned you down before you could? I've been working in the same office as you for 4 months. How many people turned you down before you resorted to us?
Secret. Moving on quite rapidly. So these guys are no strangers in the sporting industry, which is thankfully making a little bit of a comeback. But let's talk a little bit about you guys first. Tell us pre-COVID, what you do for work. You know, what's your history like?
We'll start with Duncan.
Beauty first.
Yeah. I've known Duncan for quite a few years in various guises in sporting institutions in Singapore, and I was very fortunate because I was with you in the SEA Games, Kelly, working for MediaCorp, and One Play Sports, the COO there, Anthony Raj, I met with him, and he said, we're going to be doing the Singapore Premier League, and we're going to try and do it a bit bigger and a bit better. And obviously Duncan was, I think, commentating and presenting for large parts of last season, and they offered me the chance to come and commentate on the Singapore Premier League, and I was delighted because I've been working a lot in India in the last 3 years, and this was obviously no more than 6 or 7 weeks before COVID struck, and I was blessed to come back to Singapore full time. It's obviously very unfortunate what's happened with the COVID, but from a personal perspective, I'm very grateful because I've been in and out of Singapore for 12 years, and to be stuck here.
You got stuck here at the right time, didn't you?
Yeah, I think there are definitely worse places in the world to be stuck.
So.
Yeah. But you're so involved in so many different sports. I mean, like volleyball, snooker, football, everything. You commentate these. I mean, you can watch a random boxing match.
Yeah.
Should have heard him at the SEA Games.
And then this familiar voice just pops up, and I'm like, oh wait, I know that voice.
Is it like the fingers screeching on a blackboard when you hear it?
No.
No,
I mean, they bleed, but
at my age, I mean, obviously, you three of you are very young, and you've still got your best years ahead of you. But I'm kind of winding down now, so I prefer actually working on sports that I've never done before. And as you say, there's not many left now. Obviously, football, if you're doing this for a living, football is essentially where you're going to get the most work because there's more football than anything else. But I never shy away from doing anything. You mentioned the volleyball. I mean, that was a big thing I did in India last year, the Pro Volleyball League. And it was great fun. I'd never worked on volleyball before. And you get passionate and you learn about all these sports. So it's fantastic.
And how does that work? The amount of research that goes into commentating on a sport that you are not actually familiar with.
I've got no life, Barbara. So basically,
so that's all he does,
my
research.
life revolves around writing notes, and I'm very old school, not like you modern kids with your iPads and stuff, and Duncan will testify to this.
Well, no,
I'm all cards
I've seen
and
this.
pens.
It's cue cards galore.
Yeah, I'm like Rain Man with it. So, yeah, but I enjoy it. I mean, listen, there are much worse industries to be in. I kind of wish I'd paid attention more at school and got a proper job. But, yeah, so I'm very blessed, really.
Sounds like a proper job to me. What about you, Duncan?
Well, I work with Patrick, fortunately or unfortunately, at One Play Sports. But I've been there at One Play Sports for about, I think, 18 months now.
You were the first employee, weren't you?
I was the first one.
Wow.
At One Play Sports, and still going strong. So I present sport. I'm also part of the content team at One Play Sports. But we have the passion working on football, but also on community and school sports as well. And I'm also doing like just random sports and just learning as I go. And I think that's the way it is with you as well, Patrick.
So I want to know, what is the weirdest sport that you guys have had to commentate on?
I did the 2 sports at the SEA Games because I spent 2 years working for Astro in Malaysia, and I did the SEA Games in there, which was 2017, because I saw you there as well.
Yep.
And 10-pin bowling and the speed skating. I think that having speed skating in an ice rink in the middle of Kuala Lumpur was quite interesting. So yeah, 10-pin bowling and speed skating.
You taught me some interesting terms in 10-pin bowling, by the way.
Turkey. Do you know what a turkey is, Barbara?
Is it not what we have at Christmas?
It's 3 strikes. I think it's 3 strikes in a row, isn't it, a turkey? Are you only good at
Really?
10-pin
Is it 4 or
bowling?
3?
I just
Can't even remember now. What about
Yeah.
you? What's the weirdest thing?
Actually, it's a sport that we spoke about, volleyball. I never did it until the ASEAN Schools Games in Semarang, Indonesia, and we went there just to broadcast whatever sport we could get our hands on at that point. And there was an opening to do a volleyball match between, I think, Indonesia and Thailand, a non-Singapore contest. So I was just learning the names and learning the sport as it went. And
That's got to be the hardest as
well.
well, right? When you've got like the Thai names and you're not familiar with them, and you've got to try and say them quickly because you're trying to get through a sport.
And it rotates as well, right? They just go up and go in. So I'm just like looking at the sheet of paper of the names, as well as like trying to keep score of what's actually happening on the court. So yeah, that was pretty fun.
Have you ever had to do kabaddi?
Kabaddi, funny, there's actually,
Because I was going to say that's a pretty
there's
weird
actually a very
sport.
sad story about that, but I was offered the job at Star Sports India, which are huge, to be the sort of, they wanted to get a white face presenting it because they wanted to try and take it internationally. So I did go into long negotiations and chats about that, but for reasons which we won't go into now because it was a bit of a nightmare, it didn't end up happening. But yes, I'm familiar with Kabaddi. And that, in India, would be after cricket. Obviously, the IPL rules the roost there. Kabaddi is more popular than even the Football League there, the ISL. So, yeah.
Their prerequisite was hair.
Yeah, probably.
Probably green eyes as well. You didn't fit the bill.
Do, or that you would not feel comfortable doing?
You know something? I love all sports. Australian rules football, I'll still watch it, but I can't quite figure it out. That's about the only one, I think. Aussie
It's just
rules
a cross
football.
between cricket and football and rugby.
Well, it's one of those rare sports, by the way. Nobody knows the origins of Australian rules football. There's no, like most sports, like
How it came
how rugby was
about.
invented because a boy at rugby school picked up the ball and ran with it. But Aussie rules, the only thing they can come up with is because of the pitch that cricketers in Australia back in goodness knows when used it as a way of keeping fit in the off-season when they couldn't play on the wet pitches.
Fair enough.
But Aussie rules.
That
So what
works
I'm
too.
curious to know, before we move on to COVID, Duncan, congratulations. You were recently promoted to daddy.
Yes, thank you so much.
How has COVID treated you and little one and managing work and everything like that?
It's tough. So me and my wife, Natasha, just the two of us. Her parents were supposed to come down. They live in Canada. They couldn't come down. We couldn't get a helper. So it was just the two of us just slugging it out. And then credit to her as well, because after my 2 weeks of paternity leave, I was back working on One Play Sports and on Get Active TV. And so it was just him, Caden, and Natasha at home for most of it. So
And how's she
really
doing?
super. She's doing better now.
Yeah, I'm going to ask about the
now,
mother.
yeah.
Everyone forgets about the mother. Never mind the child. How is the mother doing? How's Natasha doing? She's doing
She's
okay?
doing good. She's doing good. You know, she's going out now more often, and I'm taking charge at night, and she's going out and like having her little girls' night.
Oh, that's
just
good.
Some freedom as well, just to go out. So that's
Look
good.
at
Living
you,
your best daddy
Daddy.
life. So obviously, COVID hit the world very, very differently. I mean, different countries locked down at different points in time. Different sporting organizations put a standstill to the leagues and everything like that at different points in time. I think the Singapore Premier League was one of the last few.
Yeah.
Like, we really held it off until it was absolutely necessary.
And that was a real shame, that, because
it was the last thing,
the last couple of
thing that
weeks-
people had to
The
watch.
last couple of weeks, obviously, the Singapore Premier League, which Duncan is incredibly passionate about, and that passion rubs off on me, has struggled to get any kind of recognition across Asia, really, never mind the world. But it was only us and Belarus that were still going at the end. And I think the last game before they pulled the plug was
Albrecht
and Tanjung Pagar. And that game was being previewed in the written press all over the world. And the numbers, because we obviously stream the games live on One Play Sports, along with the Football Association of Singapore social media channels, the numbers were huge. So for that one game, we had the spotlight on. And again, listen.
It was the only thing
You're
for
not
people
going to
to
complain,
watch.
though.
In the scheme of things, obviously, with what's going on in the world, sport, though we're still passionate about it and we want it to come back, is not the most important thing. But there's a part of me that thinks if we could have found some way to power through, we might have given the Singapore Premier League a platform that it would have never had before.
So what I want to know is, from your points of view, what were your thoughts on how different countries and different sporting organizations handled these gradual closures of sporting events? Like, could it have been done better? Was it done well? What are your thoughts, unfiltered?
Well, listen, Singaporeans like to moan, all right, guys? I think you'll all hold your hands up to that. It's a great, Singaporeans have got many great traits, but they two things I can never work out about Singaporeans: the moaning when this country is like one of the modern marvels of the planet, and also the queuing at chicken and rice stalls. There's two chicken and rice stalls next to each other. They both sell in chicken and rice, but you'll queue for an hour. And you'd rather queue
It's
for
a
an
better
hour.
one. Why would you not go for the better
and
one?
also,
chicken and rice.
the fact that you said chicken and rice
rice
instead
instead
of
of just
chicken
chicken
rice
rice.
is just...
It's chicken rice.
How long have you been?
You are not local.
At that point, I'm going to take a pause because I'm just in a little bit of shock right there. We're going to go for a short break. When we return, we're going to continue this chicken and rice debate on Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. Don't go away.
welcome back to Kickback with Kelly, Barbara, Duncan, and Patrick, and apparently chicken and rice.
But it's chicken and rice. If you say chicken rice, that suggests the rice has something chickeny about it, but the chicken is a separate entity.
No,
so
no,
it's
no,
chicken
no.
and
No,
rice.
Okay,
No,
so do you
but
know how
there
to say it in Mandarin?
No.
Okay, so in Mandarin, it's called 鸡饭, chicken, rice.
But I'm saying it's chicken.
Yeah, but you cook the
rice
rice
and
with the
chicken are separate entities. They deserve to be separated.
No, but they're also cooked together.
But they're not cooked together, are
You
they?
use
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
stock to cook the
You use the
rice.
stock.
but that's not
bone.
cooking. The chicken's not with the rice until it's on the plate.
Well, it depends, actually. Some people actually prefer to keep it dunked in. That is a separate conversation. We're going to continue about sport and COVID. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what happened when COVID hit. Obviously, for you guys personally, how did it affect you guys? Duncan, he's had enough time.
I think from a personal point of view and from a selfish point of view, we want the sport to just carry on, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what we love, we're very passionate about. But in the greater scheme of things, obviously, health is more important. And I don't think we all knew how badly this pandemic would be. SARS has nothing on this, looking back at it. And we
Yep.
thought, yeah, it might be another SARS, we'll get through it. And SARS, I think we just saw football and sports in general just stop for a little bit, for a week or 2 weeks, and then it started back as if nothing happened. But then as things happened, then we realized, oh, this is really something serious, something that's really going to impact not just Singapore, not just Asia, but the whole world. And everyone just needed to find different ways to engage with the audience. And I think as sports companies in the world, it's either you stand still and die, or you just move with the times. And I think a lot of sports have gone virtual in that sense.
So let's talk about that pivot then, because obviously with sports going virtual, I mean, Formula One for a period of time, they decided to get everyone in simulators and racing on the F1 game. But it's a little bit different for certain sports. There are certain sports like Taekwondo, for example, that have gone into esports. So you can actually fight virtually with each other, and it's quite a cool thing. But that is what the Olympic Council was hoping they would take the whole virtual esports, actually making it active esports as opposed to just playing Counter-Strike or
Well,
Dota.
Patrick knows esports well.
Yeah, but esports is already one of these sort of growth phenomenons, even before COVID. Again, Kelly, we were at the SEA Games in the Philippines in December, and in the big IBC, they had the giant screen for all the international press as they go in, and the only thing that people would stop and watch was when they had the esports competitions. That got the biggest crowds, and obviously we all got our heads together at One Play Sports, obviously teamed up with John Young of Sport SG and Get Active SG to create the programming that you guys have been so good on. And we started doing some interactive FIFA tournaments, this incredible concept where you've got 11 players dotted around the same country coming together to play. And then most recently we've had Q Sports, because you talk about Taekwondo. Obviously, the reality is you're not going to get away with any kind of contact sports. But something like Q Sports, we had all the players wearing masks. They were cleaning the balls in between matches. Only a very limited number of people in the studio. So there are ways you can work around it. But, we're talking about this COVID thing as if it's in the past tense. The reality is we don't know what's going to happen next week, let alone next year.
No, we're having this chat. Everyone says, all right, we'll postpone and let's start things again in 2021. No, COVID is not a new year, new me. With COVID, it will carry on.
The terrifying thing is, I think, I'm not an educated man when you only read, what you read. A great article in Rolling Stone magazine that put it into perspective. They say,
What
can't
magazine?
believe, I must Rolling Stone magazine. Are you not a subscriber? So basically, the quickest vaccine ever invented by man took 4 years to develop and safely introduce, and that was for the mumps.
Yep.
And if you go by the school of thought that we're not going to get back to normal until a safe vaccine is found, then goodness knows how long it's going to last. And the problem you got with rushing vaccines through is once they say, right, this is the vaccine, you then can't test other vaccines because you're going with one and that's it. So we could be in this for a longer yet, I think.
And I also think that top-level sport will return, as we've already seen, but the lower-level sports, I think it will take a long time for it to return. Then the reason is, top-level sports, they're getting tested every day or twice a day, and they have the money to do that.
That has to be so painful. I can't imagine
It's just
shoving,
someone stick up your nose twice a day.
Have you had it done before?
No.
No.
Mom had it done.
How was it?
It was a different kind of sensation. It didn't hurt, but it was kind of enjoyable, actually, for me.
It was like if
Kind
you've
of
got
enjoyable.
a
Who
scratch,
are
if
you?
you've
Like a
got a
nice
tickly
scratch,
throat, it's just
exactly.
like, oh yeah, that's the spot.
That's
So
disgusting.
I'm curious, from your point of view, how did people react to esports, like fans and everything? Because sports in general is a very, people get so involved, so emotionally involved
It's the
in
same.
sports. Did we have the same level when it came to
It's the same,
esports?
but it's clearly a different audience. I genuinely think people that have crossed over from the real version to the virtual version is minimal, if I'm going to be honest. But there's an existing base of these esports guys, and it's their own little community. I mean, we're doing another big tournament on One Play Sports starting this weekend, the VPG Asian Super League. And of course, it's not like real football where the guys have a game and then have got a rest for 2 or 3 days. These guys are playing like sometimes multiple matches on the same night, and there's big money involved as well.
There is huge money
The
involved
reality
in
is, if
esports.
that's the only kind of sporting content we can get, there are people out there that like it, so why not do it?
And the people will consume. Okay, so then things, like Barbara said just now, things are slowly coming back, right? We're seeing the football matches come back in drips and drabs in different leagues and what have you. But let's talk about the things that are taking place in other forms, like the virtual marathons. It's just been announced that the Stanchart Marathon is going to be done virtually this year. Obviously, the London Marathon, we had James Walton on, who's running it virtually this year as well. What's your take on all of these virtual editions?
But again, I think to satisfy sponsors and to try and keep events alive, they've got to do it. I saw that Standard Chartered marathon press conference yesterday, and it looks like they've got some great initiatives to try and keep people engaged. And again, as Duncan said, we might have to get used to it because you don't know where it's going to lead. I think one thing's for sure, when it eventually does come back in its real form, whether it's a month, 6 months, or even a year or so, we're going to appreciate it a lot more. This is a defining moment in our lifetimes. As I said, I'm older than you guys, but I think even
Really? We
with
couldn't
my
tell.
extra, thank you, Barbara. Well, even with that extra 20 years I've got behind me, there'll be nothing as significant as this that happens in the world for the rest of my life, and I'd imagine not the rest of yours. So,
Fingers
hope not.
crossed. I was gonna say fingers
I'm
crossed.
60 years old.
we were talking about this earlier. I'm 45 in a couple of weeks, so I'm nearer to death than I am to life. You two have still got, and you three rather, have still got your best years ahead of you. Don't want to I'm depressing
I
myself
was just going
now.
to say, this is
Yeah.
rather morbid
Take a
discussion.
Come on, let's end your series on a positive note.
Yeah, Duncan, what about you? What's your take on it?
I think virtually, physically it's like the Standard Chartered Marathon. People had to come to Singapore to take part in it. I think virtually we had the conversation with the Standard Chartered people, and they said, they expect actually more sign-ups than the actual marathon, physical marathon itself. So I think more people will be involved in the Standard Chartered Marathon this year. And also, I think there's like different routes where people who sign up from all around the world will be able to like have a running route, and there's augmented reality that will be introduced as well. So they may run and see different parts of Singapore: the north, the west, the south, the east. So that's fantastic.
I think technology has definitely stepped in with COVID
Massively.
to help, and I think it's also just accelerated. I mean, the amount of stuff that's now gone on green screen, the amount of stuff where now you're trying to have these immersive virtual tours for museums, for districts and stuff like that, just to try and get people to do virtual tourism as well.
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting how all of this has come into play and how you're now doing virtual tourism via sport, which I don't think is something that we'd considered or contemplated before as much.
I think they're looking at that with the HSBC Singapore Sevens that was postponed. I mean, I think One Play Sports is currently working with Sport SG and the HSBC Sevens people to create something which is, as you suggested, a fully virtual reality experience. As if you're there, you can go into different rooms, as you say, put the goggles on. I mean, the stuff they can do now is incredible. But we can kid ourselves all we like. It's not, however you shake it down, not a replacement. But as I say, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Hopefully when it comes back, it will lead to a real resurgence of live sport, particularly in Singapore. Well, let's be brutal honest, a bit like the Singapore Premier League. It's kind of floundered and been neglected a little bit in terms of public interest. So when we eventually get the hard reset, hopefully we can take it as an opportunity in Singapore to build on all sports, not just the Singapore Premier League, and get that national stadium, which is 200 yards away from us, full up on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So-
would be nice.
Just to wrap up this segment, we want to hear from you guys. What are your hopes and wishes for sport going forward as we kind of enter this new normal?
I think a huge marketing plan needs to be put in place for the return of sport. Like, as you said, the Singapore Premier League and a lot of sport in Singapore has been neglected. There's not been much spotlight on it. But when it does return, I think it needs to come back with a bang. Like sport has returned, big spotlight on it. And there's been a lot of budgets that have been, not used for certain events. Just put that all together just to create a big marketing plan for Singapore sport.
My hope really is, obviously, the delayed Tokyo Olympics, I think, could be a watershed moment if they can get that as it's planned, I think, to be on. As we speak this time next year, it's going to be reshaped. And then, of course, the SEA Games is coming up in Hanoi. So I think if we're in a position where the SEA Games goes ahead in Hanoi, that's probably the signal that everything's going to go ahead as planned. But who knows?
Fingers crossed then. We're going to go for a short break. But when we return, we're going to put these two gentlemen through their paces on our final edition of Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. Don't go anywhere.
and welcome back to Kickback with Kelly, Barbara, Duncan, and Patrick on our Return of Sport finale.
This is the last show, right? So I'm just seeing what I can take home from the set. You won't be needing this stuff anymore, will you?
Well,
Barbara
I made
twine
that.
wrapped that.
Did you?
So
Is this homemade?
Yeah.
You are a
So
multi-talented young lady.
it's an
aren't you?
old
marry her.
plastic bottle. I think it had my post-workout like BCAA things in it, and you reuse plastic, right? It's just a nice thing to
Upcycling.
do.
Amazing.
Recycle, kids.
upcycling.
Exactly. So we have a little challenge for the two of you, just because you're so heavily involved
Doesn't
in the
involve
sporting
riding
world.
on a bike. I've seen your challenges, and it usually ends with someone having a heart attack. Is
No.
it verbal rather than physical?
It's vocal, since the two of you are clearly very good at that. Have you ever played Taboo?
No, I don't know. Taboo.
So you're given a word.
Okay.
And you have to describe whatever it is. So, for example, if I say Kelly, if my word is Kelly, right? If on the paper it says Kelly, there are a list of words that I can't say as I'm trying to make Duncan guess the word Kelly.
Okay. Like radiant and beautiful.
Yes,
That kind of-
exactly. Wouldn't be able to use those words. I'd
Look at you
say short hair, my sibling. You know, so you
I
have
thought you were talking about me there for a minute. Sorry, I think you said short hair.
No, she would have said no hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
So you got it.
I'll try
Okay.
and pick it up. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the theme. The
Okay.
theme is sports. So
Okay.
it should be pretty straightforward for you guys. I will show you the word, and underneath it, there are a list of words that you can't use in your
And I've
description.
got to get.
And he's
And
got to
Duncan
guess
has
I
to
have to guess
guess
it. Okay.
the
You have
to
main
guess.
word.
Yeah.
Okay? We're going to see how many you guys can go through.
Okay.
And how many you end up
So I've
passing
got-
or failing.
So I've got to.
You've got to describe it.
I'm the describer. Duncan's the guesser.
Yes, you got
Yes.
it, Patrick.
Okay. Wow.
He's just stalling for time.
He's seeking clarity. Don't worry, we're not
Okay.
going to end the episode until
all right, okay.
we get through all 8 of them.
Is it
All right?
time-based or until we get it all?
It's going to be out of the 8.
It's going to be
Okay.
out of the 8. Let's see how many we can
But
get.
this is going to be easy because Duncan is the principal presenter at One Play Sports. I'm the commentator, so we work like this on a regular basis. We have
You've just got
we have a
this
telepathic
special
understanding.
connection.
Okay, let's put this
All right.
telepathy to good
Right.
use.
So,
All
Why
right,
are you
are
building
we
this
ready?
up, Pat?
okay.
Ready
so
to
this
go?
is the first
Yep.
one.
Yeah.
I can only use one word, or I can use.
No, you can-
sentences?
you can
okay,
describe it
your
as much-
first love.
Football.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say your wife.
Dude! No, because I know what
Nothing.
he means. I know what he
Shame.
means.
Nothing but net.
Basketball.
Wow. He's really thinking about
Yeah.
this. Usually people just blurt out
There
whatever
is-
they
Short
can.
corner.
Hockey.
Not bad.
Spike.
Volleyball.
Okay, these are really easy. Come on then.
5-meter badge. 5-meter badge.
You can't just repeat the word. It's not going to change.
Doggy.
Hey?
Doggy.
Surely I'm not allowed to say whatever I'm thinking.
Doggy paddle.
Canoe.
Doggy paddle in a canoe.
I know what doggy paddle is.
Goggles.
Swimming.
What did he mean by short? Short
Decathlon.
course.
Athletics. Track and field.
No. He's doing really well.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Don't use hand signals.
Flat tire.
Formula One.
Um,
Racing.
can't-
Spoke.
Don't
Broken
use
chain.
your hands.
Bicycle. Tour de France.
No, well, what's a genre?
Blanking out at the moment.
The Tour de France is in what genre?
Biking, cycling.
Yeah, tiger.
There you go.
Correct. This one's a bit of a toughie one.
You wanted to say that, didn't you?
PB Sindhu.
Badminton.
Wow! We got that in about
You
3.5 minutes. All
Bad.
8 of them.
We know our onions.
I was fully expecting you to end up using some of the words in there, but no, you thought about it.
He was.
No, so I got a swimming one.
Come, cause
What's the 5-meter badge?
You get your 5-meter badge for swimming. Did you never get your? That's the first badge you get. 5-meter
I
badge.
didn't know you had
It's a
badges.
very English thing.
You can swim,
It's a
can't
very
you?
English thing.
It's
I
like
remember.
chicken and rice.
I remember getting my. I remember getting my 5-meter badge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're more my age, Kelly, aren't you? So you
Yeah,
know more about
apparently
things.
so. Apparently so. Gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you guys on our final
I
episode
know, what
of
am I
Kickback
going to
with
do
Kelly
now?
and
That was the
Barbara.
first thing I scrolled down to on all the Sports Singapore social media channels for my, thrice weekly hit of a bit of Kelly and Babs.
I know. Well, you're just going to have to give us a call now.
Okay.
Ah, well.
I know that call won't be answered.
It has been so much fun over the past 4 or 5 months with you guys, either on the morning show or Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. I think Barbara and I have thoroughly enjoyed bringing you all this content
you know we
over
have.
the past few months. And guys, it's been so nice working in close proximity with you lot as well.
Do
It's been
come and
really
visit.
fun.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we
Do
will.
come visit,
Yeah.
I think we
especially
will.
you, Barbara.
Okay, all right, moving on. Oh, Pat. Well,
Pat.
once again, thank you so much for joining us here on Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. It's been an absolute pleasure. We hope to catch you again soon on Get Active TV.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll try not to shed a tear.